This is a football podcast, man. Meat, football, good. Man, we talk football. We eat burgers.
Welcome back to the Scramble Drill Dynasty podcast. We're talking about Dynasty, the best way to play fantasy football. My name is Ben. Across from me is Landon. Landon, how are we doing in week 16 of the fantasy playoffs?
We're doing great. We just actually started recording, and I had to stop because when you said week 16 starts in 10 minutes, I had to make sure my lineups were set, and they are. We're good now. But
we're recording this
we're doing
right
good.
before the Thursday night game.
Week 16, depending on your league, is either the final, it's the semifinals or the start of your 2-week finals. I like the start of your 2-week finals being in week 16, but either format. These are big weeks. These are big weeks.
These are huge. How are the fantasy leagues looking for you personally?
So I'm in 5 leagues. I got 4 dynasty and 1 redraft best ball, and I am in the semifinal in 3 of them. 1 of them I'm gonna win. Like, it's just there's almost no chance I lose.
There's almost no point in talking about it. It's a home league against people who are not plugged in. So you can imagine a guy who plays as much fantasy as Landon playing against first-time Dynasty players. It's embarrassing.
Yeah. They're plugged in the sense of they check the lineups, they check trades, they're doing things the league.
That's good.
But they're not plugged in as far as they make bad decisions, and I'm projected to win. Both lineups are set for this semifinal round. 1 week, not 2 weeks, 1 week, and I'm projected to win by 47 this week. So I'm going to win that league. I mean, if I don't win, it's a disaster.
What have you done?
But the other 2 leagues, our Scramble Drill League with really good players. I'm in the semifinals there. We'll see about that one. The rest of the 4 teams are really good. So, we'll see. And it's exciting. The 2 leagues I care about most, I'm out. I'm not in the playoffs, so that's not great.
It sucks.
But I got a chance to win a couple championships this year. If things go right.
Yep. I'm still alive in the playoffs in 3 leagues, 2 dynasty leagues, 1 redraft. The dynasty league, man, it's the one I want to win more than anything else. I would give up every other league to win this one, to win Mully, man. It's a 2-week championship. I mean, I know I've got a good shot. I think the team's really good, but historically speaking, I have not had good luck in this league ever. This will be my 6th consecutive year in the playoffs, 4th time in the championship, and I have never won it.
You are the Buffalo Bills of the 90s.
It works because I have Josh Allen as my quarterback, and, I'm always dominant in the regular season. You keep, ridiculous stats for this league, and you do a lot of, commissioning work for it. So, you'll, put out the all-time standings. I'm, pretty far ahead of the group, I think, in most wins of all time.
You're up big time. You are up big time. Your winning percentage is insane. Yeah. Like Ben said, we keep pretty. I do a lot of commissioning work from that league, and as commissioner, I try not to show any favoritism. I am pulling for you this year. I want you to win this championship. You deserve it. And the guy who you're playing against was the champion last year. I don't want a repeat champion, so I am pulling for you.
I've paid my dues in this league. I have put in the work. I have put in the time. I'm overdue for it. I'm not confident because history has taught me not to be, but we'll see. I'm hopeful. The other 2 leagues, one I don't really care about that much, and then one is a redraft league. I'd like to win it because I know a lot of the guys in it, but I'd drop every player I've got in that league to win Mully. I would straight drop them in the semifinals, score 0 points if it guaranteed me Mully.
And you're right
Man,
there.
It's tough. It's a stressful time of year. Josh isn't with us today. Man, Josh is in a bad place right now. Josh, he missed out on the playoffs in Mully by just a touch. And then he followed up one of the most heartbreaking losses I've ever seen last year with potentially an even more heartbreaking, maybe not as bad, but almost as heartbreaking of a loss.
So last year in Mully, I'm sure he talked about it, but he ended up losing by 0.6 points on the only player playing in the last game was Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones got like a 11-yard run to give Josh's opponent the lead and then got pulled out of the game. Like literally Josh lost by 0.6 points. And then this year in our other main league log, he just lost this past week by 0.4 points.
I thought for sure he was going to win. Like I thought it was guaranteed. Because Josh had on Monday night, he was down by I think 26 point something points. And he had Justin Jefferson and Brock Bowers going. And he was texting me the whole time worried. I'm like, dude, if you want to tell me there's one player in fantasy I'm not worried about, A, it's Justin Jefferson, and B, Brock Bowers has been the most guaranteed thing I've ever seen at a tight end position. And JJ did his thing. JJ had like 20 points or almost 20 points or something. And like it just wasn't happening for Brock Bowers, and Josh was texting me like scared the whole time. I'm like, dude, Brock Bowers is going to have like 3 catches or 4 or 5 catches in garbage time. I'm not worried. And I don't even think he had a target in the fourth quarter, which is just baffling to me. And like even on the last drive, I thought I saw it where Atlanta could get a first down after the 2-minute warning and ice the game. And Kirk threw an incomplete pass. And I texted Josh, I'm like, Kirk Cousins just saved your season, my guy. Because I knew for sure Brock Bowers was going to have like 3 catches when Atlanta's giving him like 30 yards a play just to keep him out of the end zone. And he doesn't even have a target. And then Josh loses by 0.4.
All he needed was a catch for -5 yards. If he gets a catch for -5 yards, he wins. My gosh.
I feel bad for Josh, man. He's gone into hiding, and I don't blame him.
He couldn't bring himself to get on this podcast tonight. He's in such mourning right now.
No, I'm very. This is the log league too, so it's one of our main leagues. I don't know the status of his other leagues. Frankly, I don't care about them because I'm not in them. No, so
we don't care.
But prayers up for Josh. Hopefully, he makes a full recovery and will continue to play fantasy football in the future.
He might be done.
But yeah,
Be done.
He might be. That's where we're at right now. Anyway, our leagues aside, we've got, I hope, a good show today. We'll have a little bit of news. We're going to talk about some leagues have trade deadlines, but some leagues don't. So we're in a couple, where they don't. Unfortunately, I'm out of the playoffs in all the ones that have an extended trade deadline or no trade deadline. I'm sorry. But we're going to talk about some strategy. I know you particular, we don't have to talk about the details, but you're still in the hunt. I know the Scramble Drill League does not have a trade deadline. You're in the playoffs, so I know you're hunting players, so maybe we can get into some of your strategies there. And then at the very end, we just put together a quick list of a couple guys, that no matter what really happens, we just, for whatever reason, cannot quit on them for fantasy. We're not out yet. I know it looks bleak. And then we also put a couple players that we can't get off of our rosters quick enough. We're done with them.
Yep. So it should be fun.
All right. So let's get into some news first. The first one, it's good for me, but also broke my heart. David Montgomery, MCL injury. He's getting second opinions and things, but he's definitely going to miss the rest of the regular season for sure, and probably going to miss the playoffs too for the Lions. It sucks for David Montgomery. I just traded for him at the deadline in Mully, but I also have Jahmyr Gibbs, so that helps. But it sucks for him, sucks for David Montgomery owners. You had David Montgomery in the Scramble League.
Yeah, this one hurt. This one hurt.
You don't like that. I love David Montgomery, dude. He's a monster. I hate that.
Oh yeah, no. This is really tough. Maybe he gets back for the Lions for the real playoffs, but as far as your fantasy season goes, David Montgomery's done.
No, he's 2 more weeks. He's not going to play for sure.
No, he's not going to play for 2 weeks. And if you're in a league that plays in Week 18, just leave.
He's not going to play Week 18 either. Let's be clear. But he wants to come back for the late in the real playoffs.
I just wanted to make that statement, just to everyone. But
do not play.
Yeah,
Week 18.
It sucks for the Lions, sucks for Montgomery, dude. Jahmyr Gibbs has to be RB1 rest of season. He has to be. He's not going to get 100% of the snaps. There's another guy
possible.
they like to rotate in. Yeah, there's another guy they like to rotate in, but he's going to go from 50% to 70%. And dude, he's going to get all the goal line work. And
dude,
he already gets
Jahmyr
a lot of
Gibbs is
work.
the RB3 at 50-something% that he's currently at.
He's got to be
at 70%. Now I'm starting him in Mully, so probably not. But that's just my own personal bad luck.
But yeah, it's tough for Montgomery. But it's not like devastating injury. Like you're not worried about next year at all. You know, this is just
the fact that they're already
sucks for the Lions.
Yeah, the fact that they're talking about him potentially making a return in the playoffs makes me not worried at all for next season for David Montgomery.
Right.
He's fine.
Right. Yeah.
Another guy. We had a lot of injuries this week. Alvin Kamara they're looking like he's going to be done for the season. He had a groin injury, which is really annoying because the only league I had him, I was going to try to trade him because I got knocked out of the playoffs. So that's fun.
Yeah. I'm kind of in that same boat. But we've talked about it before. Kamara, he's got security next year. That extension they gave him makes next year very real for him. Now, the year after that, I know it's technically in the contract. Next year will be his last year in New Orleans. Well, of course, I said that this year. But it looks like next year is going to be his last year. But, you know, he's still got 1 year left. And this is a groin injury. It's not like a devastating injury. It's just they're terrible. They're not going to make the playoffs. Why bring him back? He's 29 years old. Why bring him back for a garbage time game in Week 18 or whatever? So, but it really hurts a lot of fantasy teams. And
there were a lot of teams counting on it.
We're going to talk about this in a few minutes. Yeah, we're going to talk about this in a few minutes.
Yep. Nick Chubb, a lot of people's favorite running back. Everybody loves Nick Chubb. Has a broken foot.
Yeah.
He's done for the season. He was not incredibly fantasy relevant to begin with, but he was still there kind of making some noise. It more makes things very interesting for whoever was able to get Jerome Ford off of waivers rest of the season.
Yeah, I
because
mean, he's
Jerome Ford's got some good matchups.
He's probably like a low-end RB2. I mean, could it be the RB20 rest of season? Maybe.
Possibly.
And in a deep 12-team league, the RB20 in your flex spot is, man, that saves you. That saves you.
I mean,
so
I got him off of waivers in the redraft league I'm in, and his matchups are Cincinnati and Miami. We know Cincinnati is, I mean, you and I could have positive yardage rushing against Cincinnati, let's be honest. And then Miami doesn't really scare me either.
Yeah, I mean, so he's going to be something. But for Nick Chubb, you know, he came back and he fought back this year, and he was playing. Like, that was great to see him just playing. He wasn't super fantasy relevant. Like, he wasn't winning anybody
a couple good
leagues,
weeks,
but it was nice. Yeah, but it was nice to see Nick Chubb out there, and this is tough. But I don't know what his contract status looks like. But I mean, you know, he's not really a reliable asset in Dynasty. He wasn't even before this injury, but he's especially not now.
Yeah, I don't know how severe it is. So I mean, maybe he's takes the offseason and is able to kind of recover fully. His contract, we should have looked it up, but I don't know what his contract is. But I could see him still having another year. He's 28. We kind of saw a resurgence of aging running backs this season.
Definitely.
Maybe he's got one more shot in him. And it wasn't like it was all him. The Browns are trash, so I don't want to say Nick Chubb wasn't a good player this year.
Yeah.
All right, probably the biggest shockwave of a news that hit in this past week. My Falcons looked awful against the Raiders, even though we won. Specifically, the defense or the offense was atrocious. So people have been calling for it for weeks. We finally benched Kirk Cousins, and Michael Penix will be making the start this week for Atlanta. I'm sure this will come up with another player we're going to mention later down the road in this episode. I'm sure you can guess who it is. But I don't even know what to think. Fantasy analysis, real life analysis, I didn't know we would make the move this season.
Yeah, my real life analysis, I don't really like how the Falcons have handled this at all. At all. Like, it doesn't make sense. I get it. The guys in the locker room, they got a chance to make the playoffs. They want whoever gives them the best chance to win out there. And right now, if you have watched the Falcons the last 6 weeks, dude.
It is awful.
Dude, I've watched them. I have a lot of Bijan and a little bit of London. And, dude, Kirk has made the most brutal interceptions. There's no zip on the ball. He looks really scared in the pocket. And, I mean, he's however old he is. He's 30-something, coming off this
36.
Achilles. Like, you can't expect him. Yeah, he's 36, coming off this Achilles. You can't expect him to be, like, super locked in and mobile. I get that. But, man, he's regressed throughout the season. He looks worse now than he did in Week 4. And so it probably makes sense that Penix gives them the best chance to win, right? But now rookie quarterbacks, a lot of times their first few weeks are tough, and then they kind of redeem themselves throughout the season. Now Penix doesn't have a chance to do that. So if he looks bad, that taste is going to be in Falcons fans' mouths all offseason. And he's put into, like, he's in a playoff race. He's got to be good. He doesn't get any leeway. Like, if he's not good, he lets the veterans on the team down. He lets coaching staffs. I mean, these are decisions that, like, Raheem Morris isn't going to get fired, but these are decisions that change things in organizations. And so, real life-wise, I don't really understand it. Fantasy-wise, I'm excited.
I mean, fantasy-wise, you feel good as a Penix owner because you'll get to see him this year. And he's not just taking up a roster spot or a taxi squad spot on the dynasty team. You'll, like, see if you've actually got something there. I mean, I know coming into the season, everyone loved Michael Penix. Like, I think real life-wise, teams really liked him. Atlanta really liked him. Obviously, we took him. You were mentioning how the Vikings were really down and out because we took Penix. They really wanted him.
It seemed that way. It seemed that way when you watch reactions.
Yeah. So, I mean, and obviously it's possible it's all coach speak, but Atlanta always talked about how much they were loving how Michael Penix looked in practice. He only played one preseason game, and the coaching staff literally said, we've seen enough. He doesn't need to play the rest of the preseason. I mean, they keep saying good things about him, which they're not going to say bad things, obviously, but maybe he is just lighting it up in practice. Maybe he is that good in practice. They're like, we've got something. We know we can't win with Kirk. Let's see if we can win with him. And this is a heck of a week to do it. We play the we play the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, I get that part of it. He gets Giants and then Commanders, two good defenses. I'm usually a fan of playing the rookie. I like playing the young guy. Like, people always bring up, Patrick Mahomes sat a year behind Alex Smith. And my take is, that was a mistake. They should have played Mahomes. They might have won the Super Bowl. That's how I feel about it. But a lot of people like that mentorship. And so I would have been fine. Obviously, they signed Kirk, so this was never going to happen. But I'd have been fine if Penix would have started playing in week 3 or 4. But, man, starting him now, like, if he plays bad, they're going to miss the playoffs, and it's going to be his fault. And that's not good for a rookie quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, you can't say it's his fault because they're in this situation because Kirk has been terrible.
Right.
We were like 6-3 and going off.
What if they have a chance to make the playoffs in week 18, they have the game won, and he throws a bad pick in the fourth quarter? That's real. That's a real thing that could happen.
Yeah, that could happen.
And if you only have a 3-game sample size, you're like, man, and that just leaves a bad taste in the fan's mouth that if it was Kirk, we'd be like, oh, well, next offseason or next season when it starts, we'll be like, well, that bum's gone. Now we got Penix, and we'll, but I don't understand it, but I'm excited to see Penix. I'm excited to see the offense with Penix. So should be fun.
Yeah. Let me put it this way. I will be locked into the Atlanta Falcons game this Sunday. I want to see everything that happens in that game. I need to see that.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. Extended deadline strategy. Basically, your league doesn't have a trade deadline. So I know in Mully we have one because it's kind of fun because things pop off at the trade deadline. People get panicky. People want to make plays and get guys for the playoffs. And I get it. I think you need to do that if you're making the playoffs. I don't like just sitting still and doing nothing. But I like having no trade deadline because it lets you get full value for players at all times. So I guess let's look at your scramble team and you kind of tell us, since you're still alive in that league, where are you at and what kind of stuff are you doing?
So I like both formats. Okay, I like having a trade deadline. A lot of dynasty players won't even play in a league if it has a trade deadline. I understand the merits of it. Now I want it to be no sooner than like the day the playoffs start. The only time we don't trade in Mully is literally the 3 weeks of the playoffs. And I like it because it gives you a lot of action in that 1 week. Like, there were so many trades that happened this year in that league, and it's a lot of fun. And I get the reservations of trading in the playoffs, but man, I love being able to do it. I will tell you, it gives you so much peace because, like, for me, I'm in this league. My 3 running backs really were Brian Robinson, J.K. Dobbins, and David Montgomery. J.K. Dobbins has been out for weeks. So in this playoff run, my running backs have been Brian Robinson and David Montgomery. And in a 12-team deep league with my wide receiver depth and tight end depth, that's fine. It's gotten me to this point, and it's been great. But I knew that's really shallow. Like, if one of those guys gets hurt, I'm in trouble because I'm playing Roschon Johnson or Kenneth Gainwell or, one of these backups, right?
Lo and behold.
This gives me the option. If we had a trade deadline, I'm screwed. But this gives me the option to this week be working on some deals because now I no longer have David Montgomery. So, I mean, and there's a couple options. Ben, I've had the devil on my shoulder telling me to go all in, pay whatever it takes to go get a high-end guy like a Gibbs, because Gibbs is on a team that's been eliminated from the playoffs, and I just said I think he's running back 1 rest of season. I actually sent an offer today and pulled it down because I got nervous. I got scared. I don't know if anybody else has ever been there where you send an offer and then you're like 10 minutes later you're like, I don't know, and pull it down. But I think what I'm trying to do is kind of go a little cheaper. Just basically a 2-week rental, and you have the ability to do that when there's no trade deadline where you can fill these holes in your roster. I can make a lateral move. I could send Monty plus a little bit and bring in a guy like, a Josh Jacobs. That's kind of a lateral move, because Monty, again, next year he's going to be fine, right? We don't think he's done after this year. Or I could try to package a J.K. Dobbins. I could try to send something with a Jonathan Brooks and try to get a guy like Aaron Jones, bring in a guy like that. Or I could go super cheap and try to get like a Jerome Ford or an Alexander Madison, a guy that's literally a backup but might get a lot of touches over the next 2 weeks. So there's a lot of different options there that I'm going through, and I'm kind of exploring a lot of different trades right now, negotiating with people and seeing what we can come to. But that's what makes it great about not having a trade deadline, because if you're in my spot and you got to fill a need, you can do that. And then also, let's say you have Alvin Kamara. Now, I know it doesn't work great because he just got injured, but let's say he didn't get injured. Let's say you have an Alvin Kamara and you get eliminated from the playoffs. This is a great time to flip him and get above his value in return because you don't need him to win the playoffs, but that's a very valuable asset to someone who's in the playoffs.
Well, even think about like a Derrick Henry. If the guy who has him just got eliminated.
Right. Yes.
Derrick Henry is still a top 5 running back rest of season. You mean to tell me the guy going to the championship doesn't want to add Derrick Henry? And maybe he's unreasonable, sure, but there's a chance there.
Right. Right. So really, if you're playing in a dynasty league with no trade deadline, which I love, and that's what a lot of leagues are, it kind of becomes like a mini guillotine league for the playoffs. Like where as soon as you get eliminated, you instantly become a seller, and you're literally a seller for 2 weeks. You're like, guys, I know that. Another thing, if you have a trade deadline this early in the season, you might trade for a running back, and there's 2 or 3 weeks before the playoffs even start that he could get injured. Right now, you know who's injured. You know this guy is healthy. He's got a great matchup literally this week. Trade for him now, and he might win you the championship. So you can really take advantage if you're a seller at this time of year, because guys know exactly what they're getting, exactly the matchups, exactly who's healthy. And you can get above market value, which is great for sellers.
Yeah. And it's like you said a couple weeks ago, you don't have to win every trade. And I'm not saying that for the guys who are the sellers, because right now you just got eliminated. Now is your time to win the trade. You've got an older guy, go win a trade. But if you are a contender, and I'm not saying this to the extreme, do not cripple your team for the next 3 years to try to win a championship. But my gosh, be willing to overpay to bring in some points to your lineup. Like I'm kind of like an Adam Schefter in a lot of my leagues, where like I know about trades that could or couldn't happen. People talk to me, so I'm sitting here like with some guys, like he's like, do I trade Breece Hall for Saquon Barkley? He's like, I don't know, is that worth it? Saquon or Breece is way younger. Breece is really good. And I'm kind of sitting there like, and they're trying to figure out the value game. I'm like, look, man, there's 2 weeks left in this season. Who helps you win this league? You got 2 weeks. Who's going to help you win this league? The guy who's the RB1 overall, or the guy who is banged up in a horrible offense? I get it. I like Breece Hall. I actually just finally got my first share of him in Mully. I like Breece Hall a lot. I think Breece Hall is an elite talent. I understand he's 23 years old. If I'm in Mully and I can trade, I know we don't have a trade we have a trade deadline. I would trade Breece Hall and something else to go get Saquon Barkley right this second for this 2 weeks. I want that.
Yeah, and that specific example, those guys are close enough. I think. Like it's different if it's like Breece Hall for Josh Jacobs. Where it's like the value drop.
You got to give me something on top of Jacobs. Decent to get Breece.
A lot on top. But Saquon,
and I would explore that, like I would do it. But
enough. The values are close enough to where, like, a lot of people probably come down on either side of this. I actually think I prefer Saquon in a vacuum. Like, I think if I was a non-contender and I could do that, I think I might take Saquon now. But especially if I got a chance to get that in my lineup for the next 2 weeks, or maybe even 1 week, whatever your championship looks like. Yeah, man, that's us. That's a trade that you can make.
And even look at his contract. Like, I know Breece is 4 years younger, but Saquon is locked in for one more season at minimum with Philly. They can get rid of him after next season. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But you mean to tell me this 2 week run in the playoffs and next year I have for Saquon Barkley, and I can give you Breece for that? Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing that.
Yeah. And I think when you're thinking about trade deadline or no trade deadline in playoff trades, I'm more interested at this time of year in going for things like running backs and tight ends, older producing running backs and tight ends, because receivers just have so much more like future value attached to them, just because it takes so much longer for them to depreciate. Like those deals right now, I'm just not as interested in making that, because those guys hold their value longer. I'm willing to give up a little bit to bring in a George Kittle right now, an aging tight end who's going to produce and possibly win me the league, much more than I'm willing to do to trade a younger receiver to go get like a Devontae Adams. Does that make sense? Because my younger receiver is just going to hold value for so much longer that I'm not quite willing to give up I'm not as willing to give that up as I am to give up maybe a middle-aged running back or a middle-aged tight end to go get a older running back or older tight end. Does that make sense? Just because of how the value works. And same thing with quarterbacks.
I mean, that receiver, really you can look at 6 more years potentially, or something crazy with that.
Right. He's going to be good for the next 3 years, whereas the running back may be good for the next one. Like, maybe the running back you're trading for is only good for this year, but the running back you're trading might be good for 1 more year, maybe 2 more years. I'm much more willing to give up on that than a receiver at this time of year.
Yeah. No, I definitely am with you there. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so this is a great time of year to trade for tight ends and running backs. I would be less likely to trade for receivers and quarterbacks.
No, I get that. Like, unless the receiver you're getting in is like you're bringing in Amon-Ra or Jamar Chase or somebody like that. Those are the ones. But who's selling Amon-Ra and Jamar Chase?
There's always, like, if
Those
you're
guys
getting
are,
a value steal. Yeah, if you're getting a value steal, you make any trade, right? But I'm not looking to shop those guys as willing as I am to do that with running backs.
No, I totally get that.
Yep.
Anything else you want to hit on just trade deadline or no trade deadline strategy?
I just want to say, like, I see merits on both. Like, it doesn't have to just be no trade deadline. I see merits of, if you haven't played in a league in a while that has a trade deadline right before the playoffs, and, like, the 3 or 4 weeks of the playoffs is the only time you can't trade, dude, I'm telling you, that week before is insane. That week
And I will say, it works really well, I think, in more home leagues, I guess, the guys you know really well. It works really well there. Because you can get in contact with them.
Yeah.
You know the kind of stuff they want to do. I don't know. I liked it. But, I mean, like 6 trades went down that last day of the trade deadline in Mully. It was hectic.
Just for instance, I came into this playoffs in the Scramble Drill League with 2 running backs. All I had was 2 starting running backs that I could feel decent about. If we had a trade deadline the last week of the season, I would have had to maneuver my lineup to bring in somebody who could potentially be a high-end RB3, low-end RB2. I would have had to do that before the deadline just in case. And, hey, maybe if Montgomery Robinson never get hurt, I'm fine. And I don't ever use this guy. But those are the decisions you have to make. So it changes the strategy enough to where it's still fun. It's just different. I see merits on both sides. But it definitely helps ease your mind when you can still make a trade right before the championship. Or even in a 2-week championship, you can make a trade in the middle of the championship and change your roster that way.
Get one done.
It definitely gives you more
Sunday
peace of
morning.
mind. Yes, I will trade you literally Monday night. I have 1 player left. I'll trade you to get this different player so I can win this league. But it gives you more peace of mind. But both are fun.
The Lions play on Monday night, week 17. Could you imagine? Not saying it would happen anywhere, but could you imagine your opponent Monday night or Monday afternoon brings in like Jahmyr Gibbs or someone?
Yeah, like
if that happened,
you're playing Jamison Williams in your flex, and you just swing a deal to bring in Jahmyr Gibbs as like the last final piece of the puzzle.
You can actually hear your opponent crap themselves.
Yeah, so like I see the merits in that being fun, but I also see the merits in like that being a bad thing for a league. You know, something like that. Like, obviously, any trade the other person has to say yes to. So, I mean, it's not like, even if it's a steal, like the other person has to agree to it, so you're not manipulating anyone.
He either sent it or took it. Like, it's not my fault.
Yeah, he either sent it or took it, but I could see that being bad. I could see league mates getting really upset with that, or especially your opponent getting really upset with that. So I see the merits in both. I like both. I'm not going to not play in a league because they have either rule set up. But I do. If I do have a trade deadline, I want it to be only for the playoffs. I don't want it to be like week 11 or something, and you got 3 weeks left of the regular season.
I was in a league where like the trade deadline was like week 12, and the playoffs don't start till week 15. It's one of the leagues I'm actually still in the playoffs in, and like my running back room is basically nothing. Like I'm starting Aaron Jones and Alexander Madison. Those are the only 2 active running backs I have because I couldn't get anything done in week 12, and now we're like my hands are tied, dude.
Yeah, because especially in week 12, like there's still teams that are not going to make the playoffs that think they're going to make the playoffs. If you wait till the last week, everyone knows I'm in the playoffs or I'm not, and they're much more willing to trade at that point.
Yeah. And if you have a trade deadline, I would be cool like the way you did it in Mully, to where like after the Monday night game, you've still got one. I'm going to give you 1 or 2 more days to do it.
Yeah.
Because then everybody, their sets.
Yeah, Sleeper does. As soon as the last Monday night game ends, the trade deadline's over. If you set it for that week, I just extended it 2 days. So the teams who know they didn't make the playoffs can trade accordingly, and the teams who know they did can trade accordingly. So the commissioner has to be on top of things if you're going to do that. But yeah, I see merits in both. I like both.
Yeah. All right. Last thing we'll talk about. Just some players. Let's go to some guys we just, for whatever reason in Dynasty, they're just kind of darlings to us. We cannot, no matter how hard we try, I can't quit this guy. I won't get rid of him. I'm not getting him off my roster. Landon, I'll start with you. Who's your first one?
I cannot quit. I cannot quit Jalen Waddle. I just can't.
That you want to talk about brutal. An ex-girlfriend that hurts you.
Dude, I know he's been brutal. I know he had the stretch without Tua. Put that aside. I'm going to set that aside because even Tyreek was atrocious then. Nobody was good other than Jonnu Smith. But even setting that aside, even with Tua, he's produced well like maybe 2 or 3 times this year. And this man is made of glass. He's not made of glass. He's made of that glass that actors use when they break bottles over their heads. That's
like
what he's made
sugar or something in it.
He leaves every game, dude. It's unbelievable. It is even games where he'll finish the game. At some point, he's going to the blue tent.
Oh, I cannot.
At some point, he is going to that blue tent.
I think Sleeper does it on purpose. Like, I don't even have Jalen Waddle anywhere, and I'll get notification from Sleeper, Jalen Waddle is headed under the medical tent. I'm like, why?
Yeah, no, it's just an auto. It's auto set. It's auto set. Even if he's not,
once a week.
It's just that notification is going out during the Dolphins game. Just because it's some intern is like, I'm not doing this every single week. I'm just gonna set it. 147 every week. It's going out, and it's probably going to happen. But yeah, I can't quit him, Ben. I've seen him be a wide receiver 1. I get it. That was without Tyreek Hill. He just got a contract extension. He's the type of guy that Tyreek's not going to be there forever. And Tyreek has been less productive this year. Even with Tua, Tyreek has lost a step in a way that we've not seen him do ever until this year.
We're not saying he's bad, but like last year, you could lock in Tyreek Hill was scoring a 60-yard touchdown like every week. Tyreek was 20, guaranteed.
Tyreek was who the offense ran through, period. This year, dude, the offense runs through Devon Achane. Like, as crazy as that is, as small as he is, if you watch the Dolphins, that's who they play through. And they've spread it around a lot more. Jonnu Smith's getting a lot of targets. Tyreek's taking a step back, and Waddle hasn't been great. And he gets hurt all the time, I get it. But, guys, he just got a contract. I've seen him be a wide receiver 1. I cannot quit him. It would not shock me if he was a top 12 wide receiver next year. It just wouldn't shock me. Like, and he's fallen to, like, the dynasty wide receiver 25, 26 on keep, trade, cut. And there's just guys ahead of him I prefer. There's just guys ahead of him I prefer him to. I can't quit him. He would be a top 20 dynasty receiver for me still, even with the injuries, even with him getting nicked up, even with all the stuff. I just know he's too talented, and he has a contract in a Mike McDaniel's offense with his number 1 receiver aging out and him coming into his prime. I can't quit him. Yeah.
No, I don't blame you. I mean, he's 25 on keep, trade, cut. Like him or Jaden Reed. I'm definitely taking Jalen Reed. Olave, Metcalf, Jordan Addison, Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers. Like I still, as badly as I have seen him hurt people, I would trade any of those guys for Jalen Waddle.
I can't quit him. I don't know. maybe it's a blind spot, but I'm still in on Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, he still feels to me like he's got that security. Like I've tried to trade for Jalen Waddle unsuccessfully in a few leagues, but I'm sitting there looking at my wide receiver and I'm like, okay, if I can put Jalen Waddle there, I feel good. And like as wide receiver 3 on my teams and stuff, like I guess still feel good about him. So
yeah,
no, I don't blame him.
And there are people who are still holding out. There are people like me out there, Ben, that are still in on Waddle, but there's people who've given up. I've seen him go for some pretty crazy prices because people have given up. But I think like 2 of the last 4 weeks, he's had okay weeks. Like we're starting to see some life again.
He's kind of coming into his own a little bit.
I can't quit. And the thing is, I've seen him be a wide receiver 1. There's other guys who we predict could be a wide receiver 1, but we haven't seen it. I've seen him do it. I know it's in there. And yeah, I think it'll shine through again one day. Yeah.
Mine is it's an ugly name right now. People do not like to see it up there. If you've been a long time listener to the show, you know Josh hates this guy, and I've been there through the thick of it with him. Michael Pittman, I just can't quite say no. I get it, man. It's not Pittman's fault. Anthony Richardson is hot garbage. I mean, he is a steaming turd. Michael Pittman is the wide receiver 42 on Keep Trade Cut. But man, I've seen him be excellent. He's got the contract. I know Josh Downs is there, and Josh Downs might be better than him, but man, for whatever reason, I just can't say no just yet. I still like him.
He has a contract, and the thing about him is that I will say he has Shane Steichen. And
I love Shane Steichen.
Oh, he's great. And AR has actually been so bad that he's not looking like the long-term answer. We'll see if they bring somebody else in or if they roll with AR next year. I think they probably roll with AR. He was still the first-round pick, 18, 19 months ago or whatever it is. But yeah, I could see in the future somebody else throwing the ball. And if that's the case, Pittman will just go up in value just because of that. And he's still talented. He's good after the catch. He gets open enough. Like, he's not an elite talent, but he's a good receiver, man. And we've seen him be productive. We've seen him be a wide receiver too. Borderline
wide receiver 1 last year. He had 156 targets last season.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a lot closer to being done with him than it seems you are, but I can see some merits for, still liking him.
I mean, is he wide receiver 1? No. But I don't know. Maybe I'm holding on to false hope, but I'm still riding Michael Pittman.
Do you have Keep Trade Cut pulled up?
I can go back to it.
Oh,
yeah. He's
I
wide
just want to see
42.
what receivers are going around him. Are they saying?
Ricky Pearsall is right behind him. Xavier Legette, Cortland Sutton, Cooper Kupp, Chris Godwin, Khalil Shakir are right ahead of him. I mean, I feel like that's probably where he should be.
Yeah, it's probably around. Yeah. Can't quit him.
I can't let him go just yet. I can't do it.
Yeah. Yep. I get it.
All right, give me the next guy. Let's move off
guy.
Michael Pittman.
My goodness.
I don't like this next
Trevor
guy.
Lawrence. I cannot quit him. I'm out. I'll say this. I'm out on him ever being like an elite real life NFL quarterback. Like he's not going to be in the Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson range. He's just not. Like that's off the table for him. But can he be a legit franchise quarterback that has the Jags fighting for a division, year in, year out? Like, can he be a guy who, if they get a good offensive coach with Brian Thomas Jr., if they can bring in maybe You got Evan Ingram and maybe bring in one more weapon. Can he be a guy that can be on a given year between QB 15 and QB 8? I think so. He's with the right coaching. With the right coaching. And so, we've talked about it before. Some coaches are going to sign up to be with him. He's got enough rushing upside. Like, he's a pretty good athlete for a quarterback. He really is. He's got enough rushing upside. Now, we saw what happened the last time he took off and tried to get something done. It ended this season. I get that. But he's a big, strong kid. He's fast. He can run the ball. So you like that.
He will surprise you with his legs.
He'll surprise you with his legs. And he's got he's got talent. Now, he doesn't have elite talent like we thought maybe he did when he was in college and when he was coming out of the draft. But he's got talent. Like, he's a good player. And in a super flex league, guys, the QB 15 is huge. And I think he definitely he has the ceiling to be a low-end QB 1, I think, in a given year. And I think his floor, if he's healthy, is a mid to low-end QB 2. Like, I think if he's healthy and he has a bad season, he's going to finish as QB 18, 19, 20, somewhere in there.
Which, and again, in a 12-team Superflex, that's going to start for you.
Yeah. For that to be your floor in a Superflex league, if you're healthy, I can't quit him. He's got a contract. They're paying him $275 million. $275 million.
Yeah.
He's about to get a new coach. I can't quit him.
You can't let that go. My last guy is another one. He's been one of my dudes for a long time now. Mr. DeAndre Swift. Another one I just can't. Haven't mentioned his name much on this podcast this year. I used to have to defend him way more than I used to. But man, I can't let him go, dude. I just can't. He has like actually hasn't shown through on like a lot of the fantasy stuff. I get that, but he has not looked bad on a horrendous Chicago Bears offense. Absolutely
that Bears
terrible.
offense has got problems. My God, the Bears as a whole have problems.
I mean, he's still the RB20 on the Bears, man. And he's got a contract. He's going to be with them for a while. They're going to have a new coach next season. Now, granted, the running back is usually like the first thing a new coaching staff will decide they're done with. But, man, I just can't let him go. The only thing that would scare me with DeAndre Swift is if Ben Johnson went to the Bears, because Ben Johnson has already gotten rid of DeAndre Swift once. So he would probably do it again.
True.
He would get rid of him again. But the talent, I know you've watched DeAndre Swift, like the talent is ridiculous with him. He is legitimately one of the best talents at running back in the league. I can't get him off my mind. I can't get him off my teams. I gotta have some DeAndre Swift.
For a long time, really his whole career, one of the big problems is like injuries. He's been banged up a lot, and he's been much healthier this year.
Yeah,
he's been much healthier this year.
The problem is last year he's not Saquon, so Jalen Hurts stole rushing touchdowns, and this year he's on one of the worst offenses in football.
Yeah, the thing that I like to look for in like a player's production, kind of the underlying fantasy metrics, if you will, he's been good when their offense has been good. Like in the games their offense has performed, he's performed, which tells me like he's kind of a product of what's going on around him. So if they can figure it out, that's good. Like it's never a good sign when the offense goes off and you have a player that, like if the offense scores 35 points and your player gets 4 points, you're like, oh, maybe he's not as integral to this as I thought he was. But like Swift, when the Bears are good, he's good because he's just always going to be a part of the game plan. So I like him too. I've never been as high on him as you have. Like you have been
I've been a defender of DeAndre Swift.
You have been tried and true. I've always been a lot more indifferent. But I like him. Like he's he's worth having, guys. He's got a contract. My guess is that contract he got, the out would be after next year, which you always have to look for that in a running back contract. But he's going to be back next year. They should be better next year. New coaching staff. And the new coaching staff, they may want to get rid of him, but they probably can't next year because of the way the contract
Not with his contract.
is. And so, yeah.
He didn't get the same amount of money Saquon got, but he got a similar S contract to where those first 2 years, they both got 3-year deals, but the first 2 years are like locked in. They're not going anywhere. So next year, DeAndre Swift is still on the Bears. And he's actually, I feel like, younger than people realize. He's still 25 years old. I didn't know if you knew that. He's not old. So
yeah,
I've watched him. He's got juice in the tank. I love the guy. He's my dude.
Yep. It has pass catching upside, you know. He's not a PPR monster, but he doesn't kill you. You know, he could be. Yes, he could be. They haven't used him that way. But you know, he's gonna average 3 to 4 targets a game, you know.
Yeah, and I feel like if the offense is good, can he be the RB1? No, but I do feel like in a good offense, he's got top 10 upside. Like, I could see him, if the Bears go out there, get a good offensive coach, and their offense is even league average, I could see him like as the RB 9 or 10 next season.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, let's change gears a little bit. I've been very positive on some players that not a lot of people like. Let's talk bad about some people. I'll start with mine. We'll end on the guy I want to have the most conversation about. But I've said it before on the podcast. The best move I made all season in fantasy was trading away Chris Olave. These are the guys we're done with. I'm done with Chris Olave. And I get it. I get he's been hurt this year. I understand that. But the situation is not going to get better. I don't think it's going to get better.
Yeah, I am really close to being there with you. I'm like if you're at a 10, like completely out, I'm probably at like a 9.3. Man, Chris Olave is so frustrating to own. He is so frustrating to own. Now, the reason I can't be out on him like you are is I could see a world where he could be a top 15 receiver in a given year. I still think he does have that talent. Now, he's frustrating to own. The situation's terrible. He gets hurt and leaves every single game. And I know I just said I'm in on Waddle, but out on Olave. I think Waddle is probably more talented than Olave. I think Waddle's more talented than Olave. I've seen Waddle be a wide receiver 1. I've thought in the past Olave could be a wide receiver 1, and I've never seen it.
Dude, do you remember me and Josh last season, like before the season on this podcast, like we had Chris Olave as like, we didn't have him ranked there, but like this guy could be one of the ones who breaks fantasy, and he could be a top 5 receiver.
Yeah.
That's where we were on him 2 years ago.
We thought that, and we've never seen it. We've never seen it. And obviously, the later you go into somebody's career and just never see them produce, the door has to be open for you to get out. And I'm not there where I'm completely out on Olave. I think he's talented, right? His injury, I know concussions are scary, and this is number 2 this year, I believe number 3 overall in his career, which is scary, but it's not like he tore his Achilles, right? It's not like he tore his ACL. Like, he's going to be back full strength week 1 next year. Will the situation be better? I don't think so. And he's a guy who you've seen the Saints, even in their big weeks, he hasn't produced. The very opposite of what I just said about DeAndre Swift. Earlier this year, when the Saints were, like the first 2 or 3 weeks when the Saints were actually good,
firing.
He was scoring. Yeah, he was not. He was getting out-targeted by Rashid Shaheed. And so I understand being out on him. I've said before on this podcast, right now I'm not trading him. I'm not trading for him because I just don't like any of the prices of any packages you could possibly throw out. I've had offers where the value was there to take Olave, and I just haven't taken it just because I'm not trading for him. I'm not trading him. I'm just holding him right now. But I mean, guys, if we go another year, if we're in week 9 next season and he's played 7 games and he's the wide receiver 31 again, we have to be out. At a certain point, the talent doesn't matter. At a certain point, it doesn't matter if he can't produce.
Yeah, like I understand the talent's there. And with what we've seen on the field, like he can make some amazing plays, but he just doesn't command targets like he should. I don't feel like, not for a guy who's as talented as we think he is. He should command 10 targets a game. And I guess last season you could say he did. I mean, he had 138 targets last year, played 16 games. But the quarterback situation is not going to improve for the Saints. I mean, I don't know who they can get. They're not going to be able to draft a guy. I don't know who they can get in free agency. And I've also seen, a lot of rumors about them bringing in weapons and wide receivers to help. And, like, I definitely don't like it if they're bringing in guys to help out with Chris Olave around. They don't seem confident that they can build an offense around him as the wide receiver 1. I'm just done. With the injuries, the leaving games early, the situation is too much for me. I'm out.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. The Saints are in trouble, man. That cap, they've kicked the can down the road, and everybody's always like, oh, man, the Saints are geniuses. They do this. No, they're not geniuses. They're just kicking the can down the road, and they've never won. They haven't won while they've been doing this. It's not like, oh, they're doing this, and they won 3 Super Bowls in the process. No. What's the farthest they got? They lost to Tom Brady when Drew Brees was there.
You won 8 games.
I understood doing it when Drew Brees was there because it was like, guys, we've got a legend. He's only going to be here maybe a year or 2 more. Let's kick the can down the road. That's fine. But when your plan is to go with Derek Carr after that and, we got to go all in to try to win because we got Derek Carr. It's like, yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that.
The Raiders tried that. You saw how it worked.
Yeah, the Saints are not in a good spot. I can't be completely out, but I understand if someone is completely out. I do.
Yeah. I agree with you, but from my end, having 0 shares of Chris Olave feels real good.
Yeah. Here's I guess what I'm trying to say. Here's what I guess what I'm trying to say. I could see a world where this time next season, Chris Olave is like a 3rd-round startup pick. It's possible in my mind, and I just can't be out on that. It's also possible he's a 9th-round startup pick. That is also possible. But there's a world where he's a 3rd-round startup pick. If he does, I don't even want to say it, but I could see that happening, so I can't be completely out.
Yeah.
But I understand.
That's fair.
I understand.
Yeah, that's fair.
I can't be completely out, and I also don't want him on my team. I'll say that.
You do not want him on the team.
And I'm not completely out. So
that's fair enough. All right.
Yeah.
Hit us with your guy. I feel like we're probably going to have a little bit of conversation on this one, too.
My guy is this. Kyle Pitts gets 1 game.
I almost put him on my guy I can't quit. I almost did it, and I didn't.
I will give him 1 game with Michael Penix Jr. If they had not announced Michael Penix Jr. was starting this week and it was Kirk Cousins, I'd be done. It's just the Chris Olave thing. At a certain point, he has to score points. Like at a certain point, it's not just like the prospect profile. At a certain point, it's not just what he could be. At a certain point, you have to score points sometime for me to be in on you.
Your prospect profile only buys you a year at best.
Yeah.
Look at JSN. JSN had the prospect profile in the draft capital. It bought him a year. Now he's delivered on it, but it bought him a year.
Right. Yeah. Like at a certain point, you got to score points. I can't have these games where you get 2 targets and no catches as consistently as it happens. Dude, it happens. Like, I feel like it happens every month.
Multiple times a year. It's like not one bad game. 6 bad games.
Pitts has had, and this is true. This is true. When you're the type of prospect he was, and it's not clicking, I'm fine with blaming other parts. I'm fine with blaming other parts. So we blamed Arthur Smith. We blamed him using Jonnu Smith, which it looks like, hey, Jonnu Smith might be better than Kyle Pitts. But
I might owe Art an apology for that. I'm not going to, but I might.
Apology. Yes, we blamed that. We blamed Kirk Cousins. We blamed just the offense not using. We blamed all these things. And at a certain point, it's like, okay, no matter what changes, he still hasn't scored. Now, this final change, he's got another one. He's got a new quarterback. Ben, I will give him one game.
I mean,
if he goes out there and has one catch for 7 yards, I'm at the point at that point where I need to see it for 6 consecutive weeks. Not three good games in a 6-week stretch. I need to see it for 6 consecutive weeks. 5 good games in a 6-week stretch is what I'll need to see to be back in on Kyle Pitts.
I mean, look, I am 100%. I am admitting on the podcast I'm delusional and I am wrong. Okay, I am admitting I'm wrong, but the excuses, and I understand you can't keep making excuses, but I in my own head can, for some reason, I can logic them all out. In my head, I can logic the excuses out. The rookie season, man, 1,000 yards. 1,000 yards as a rookie season. Yards. Then you have the Arthur Smith, Jonnu Smith run, where we have the worst quarterback play in football for those 2 years. You had Jonnu Smith, who turns out, crafty veteran, actually pretty darn good. Okay. Yep. So now he's gone. So this season was the make or break season for Kyle Pitts. It started out shaky. He had a goose egg. People got out, rightfully so. I was out. Sort of. I was sort of out. But then there was that middle stretch where Kirk Cousins actually looked good. He had 15 points. He had 10 points. He had 13 points. He had 25 points. And then Kirk Cousins hit his wall. And Kirk has been awful the past month and a half. So Kyle Pitts has been awful for that month and a half. So like I said, I understand their excuses. And it's been a whole lot of excuses for the past 3 years. But you can still argue there is hope because Michael Penix is coming. I understand I'm delusional. But you can still see a glimmer of hope, and I am wrongfully hanging on to that every time. I'm going to do it. But you should... I'm saying this. Everyone else, if you are not named me, you should be out on Kyle Pitts. I am going to be the one holding the line. I know that, and I'm okay with it.
I will give him one game.
One game.
That's it. That's all I get.
If you can't, but he's got. I understand he's got to command more targets. He doesn't. He has yet to have a double-digit target game this year. Even when Kirk was dominating, the most he had was 9 targets. I can't do it, man. Can't.
You can't quit him.
Now, let me be clear. I'm not starting him anywhere. That's for sure. The one league where I legitimately was counting on him, I went and traded for Trey McBride.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't. You can't count on him. You cannot.
No.
Count on
I'm
him
not counting him
at all, dude.
But I just can't let him go, man. We actually had a thing in the Scramble Drill Dynasty group chat about him today. Like, he is going to just sit on my bench as just a stark reminder of past mistakes. And I'm going to let him sit there. I can't do anything else, man. I'm going to let him sit there.
Oh, my gosh. Yep.
Is what it is. Learn from my mistakes. Don't be me with Kyle Pitts. Be better. Be better. But I'm not going to do it. Anything else before we go watch this Thursday night football game, which actually has been a very good game so far? Denver is beating the snot out of the Chargers right now.
Are they?
Yeah, it's 21-10 in the second quarter, and Denver has the ball.
I don't have anyone in this game. Am I playing anyone in this game?
I know the guy I'm facing in Mully pulled Cortland Sutton out of his lineup last minute. I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing yet. We'll see.
Pulled him out. Okay.
Cortland hasn't done much. I was really hoping this would be a low-scoring game and he would leave Cortland in. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. But I believe that is going to do it for us this week. If you enjoyed it, leave a comment, leave a like, leave a review. Let us know what you think. Follow us on Instagram. I don't think we've been posting there very much. Josh usually runs that. But apparently he had some kind of baby or something. I don't know. He's acting like it takes up a lot of his time. It doesn't. But anyway, we will see you guys in the next video.